Okay, for the last session, number 8 of this year's FoodTreX Global Online Summit, I am pleased to introduce to you Mr. Yigal Schleifer of Culinary Backstreets. Yigal has been an institution in the culinary tour industry for a while, and his company does a great job. And when I was reaching out to someone to cover the topic of well, sustainability and the local neighborhoods and the idea of respecting local culture and local quality of life and local way of life. Eagle and I got talking, and it just seemed like we were in sync, and it just seemed like he would be a perfect person to really tackle this issue. So, without further ado, Eagle, I would like to give you the floor, and I will close myself off here.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Thank you so much, Eric, and to everyone for joining, and thank you for having me here. As Eric said, my name is Yigal Schleifer. I'm one of the co-founders and also the editor-in-chief of Culinary Backstreets. Culinary Backstreets covers the local food scene, the neighborhood food scene, and offers small group food walks and multi-day culinary trips in about almost 17, 18 different cities around the world. And we've been working at this since around 2010, originally starting in Istanbul. I'll talk more about that in my presentation. But what I'd like to do today is talk about how we see our role within local communities and neighborhoods, and our vision of using culinary tourism as a force for good, as a way of creating sustainable and even regenerative tourism, and of creating very special experiences for people that also help local communities and help sustain them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to have my presentation here. And I hope everyone can see that. And as we called this session, Walking Back in Time, Bite by Bite, Food Tours as a Positive Force. And really the idea is, when we talked about this walking back in time the idea of using our tours as a way of really taking people back to another experience of a city, and one that sort of takes them out of the kind of more over touristed parts of town, and really takes them back to understand the way a place might have felt several years back. And I'll tell you a little
Eagle,
bit.
sorry, excuse
Yeah.
me. You are in a strange presentation mode. It's the mode that shows you yourself. The next slide.
Okay.
Can you get out
Let
of that
me.
mode and do the normal mode?
Yes. Let me try that again. Thanks for letting me
Sorry to
know.
interrupt your cadence. You
No,
were
no,
you
no
were on a
problem.
roll.
How's that one?
There we go. That's perfect. Thank you.
Yay. I knew I had a choice of two. I picked the wrong one.
Okay.
So Culinary Backstreets, we call ourselves a global guide to local eats, although we're working on updating that, because we're really much more than that. But we work now. You can see some of the cities that we work in. We try to find really interesting cities. Some of them kind of maybe more traditional destinations, Tokyo, Mexico City, but we also are looking for places that have an interesting food story that might be emerging. Tbilisi is a good example. We like to think of ourselves as working in second cities. Marseille is a good example for France, Naples for Italy, Porto, and Oaxaca in Mexico. So cities that maybe today are very much on the map, but when we started working there, were not quite yet these kind of culinary destinations that they are today. So a little bit about today's menu. If we can go through that together, I'll say, what is culinary? I first want to a little bit talk about what is culinary tourism and why is it growing. I'm sure many people here have a good sense of that themselves, but I just wanted to go over a few key points. I also want to look a little bit at sustainable tourism and how is it evolving, since that is also part of the subject today. And then finally, how can the two work together in the best interest of all stakeholders? And with that, I want to give some examples of how we have been working in the field, and some ideas that we've been working with in terms of the kinds of tours that we've been putting together. And to get us started, I hope the video works well. Eric, let me know if it doesn't. I just wanted to show a little video that tells you a little bit more about the work that we do. It's just a fun way to get started, and we're quite happy with this video. So I'm gonna run the video as just a bit of a little intro, and then we'll take it from there.
We celebrate the unsung heroes of the kitchen, rich culture that is revealed in every bite. Traditions honed over generations, resulting in unparalleled culinary craftsmanship. We explore the world through food and the people that make it. These are the Culinary Backstreets.
Buenos días, bienvenidos.
Hoş geldiniz. Yine bekleriz.
Benvenuti ad Antica Facelleria.
Ecco quanto è piacere che è venuto.
We go deeper, working in the world's most intriguing culinary capitals to learn about the stories and issues at play in their streets and kitchens.
Tekrar bekleyin. Arrivederci da Napoli.
Great. So that's just a quick little taste of what we do. To give you a little bit of background, we got started in Istanbul. I was working there as a journalist. The co-founder of Culinary Backstreets and he's also American. We're both living there. It started off as a blog called Istanbul Eats, which really was just our attempt to document local neighborhood culinary culture. We added narrative-driven food tours to that, and really took it from there, expanded it to other cities. But what we really started with was the documentation of local culinary life, and then these very immersive, narrative-driven food tours, and that's really the model that we've stuck with, and adding lots of other things along the way. And happy to talk about sort of everything that we do later on, but. We try to get off the tourist map and move beyond just food. So one of the ways that we do that is by working in cities that are lesser explored. I gave the example of, let's say, Marseille or Tbilisi, and really try to tell the stories of local food makers who may be in neighborhoods that are not typically visited by people who visit the city, and even locals who sometimes may not know about these places. And the idea is to use the journalism that we do. We have editorial, but also the experiences that we have on the ground to tell these stories, to tackle interesting subjects that go beyond food, but really to do it through a culinary lens. And we really, if we have a mission, and our mission is evolving, but the way we see it, in many ways, is we want to introduce intellectually curious eaters and travelers to the world's most intriguing culinary destinations, celebrate their culinary traditions, and those who uphold them. So very much, it's very much at the heart of what we do are these food makers, these masters, these keepers of tradition, who are really kind of, in a way, the ones who are protecting the souls of the cities that we work in. We really see it in that way. A little bit about what we do. We have editorial on our website. We have guidebooks that we do. We also have small group experiences. We have an app. And what our main activity, or really the way we really do most of our work these days, is through the day tours that we do, as I said, narrative-driven food tours, and also multi-day trips. But I wanted to kind of go and do some definitions just as we move forward. So what is culinary travel, and why is it growing? I actually have a quote here from the World Food Travel Association itself. Food tourism is the act of traveling for a taste of place in order to get a sense of place. I quite like that. We have a kind of thing that we say, which is traveling by letting your stomach serve as your compass. I think they're both kind of revolving around something very similar, but really this idea, I really like this idea of getting a sense of place through a taste of place. And that's really very much what we try to offer, to really let people dive deep into local culture, local neighborhoods, really understand local life through food. In terms of some numbers, and these are a little bit outdated, maybe Eric, if you have more updated numbers at the end, you can bring those in. But global culinary tourism market reached a value of 696 billion in 2021. I'm sure it's much higher now, expected to reach, as you can see here, something much higher by 2027, annual growth of 17.4%. These are all estimates, but I think that, I think those of us who work in the industry, certainly from our experience, we can see that interest in culinary travel is really growing. It's a global phenomenon. People are interested in culinary culture from places as classic as, and here I have some photos, Athens and Lisbon, and we have a photo from Marseille, another one from Athens. I mean, these are sort of classic places, but, people are also exploring using culinary tourism to explore places that sometimes wouldn't have been as expected. I think, many cities, and those of you involved in tourism know this, many cities now are trying to leverage culinary culture as a way to promote them as a local destination, and it makes a lot of sense. And I think what are the reasons? Why is this happening? And I want to talk a little bit about that. And one thing that we think a lot about is I've got here a slide from a book called Global Brooklyn, and it's the idea that there's sort of like as globalization kind of grows and evolves, so much of the world has become the same in many ways. Like in Global Brooklyn is this way of sort of explaining that, which is you can go to the same Brooklyn style cafe in Hanoi and in Paris and in Rio and of course in Brooklyn itself. But many people travel, they don't necessarily want, they sometimes want to have a Brooklyn style cafe. Locals might really want that as well. But I think sometimes when you travel, you want to really be able to get that sense of place and that taste of place. And going to a Brooklyn style cafe, a cafe that feels like one that you've been to in many other places, is just not the experience you want to have. And local food culture is really such a wonderful and immediate and easily accessible way to get into that. So why is culinary travel growing so much? So like I said, in this increasingly homogenized and globalized world, people are really looking for this sense of authenticity. Authenticity is a complicated word, hard to replace it, but I think we can talk about it in the end maybe, because it's always an interesting subject of what authentic means, and we have lots of ideas about it as Culinary Backstreets, but for now we'll just use it as a shorthand. I think as people are increasingly concerned about eating local at home where they live, they also want to do the same when they travel. They really want to get a sense of that local. They want to taste local. They want to feel local. They want to meet locals. And again, food is a really very accessible and very immediate way of getting the local experience. And like I said, as other parts of culture becoming increasingly similar everywhere, you feel oftentimes when you travel, you feel like you're visiting the same place over and over again. Food culture remains a kind of lockbox, a kind of safeguard of local and traditional culture. Purveyors of local culinary culture are really, like I said before, I think they're like these guardians of local tradition, and they're the ones that you can really access really much more easily than many other forms of culture and expression. And the last thing I kind of call the Bourdain effect, which is the show, Bourdain's show, and what he did, I think really gave people the sense of what it means to travel through the culinary lens, what it means to really experience things locally. And, we hear this so much, oh, your work is like what Bourdain does, or, and we've in fact worked with his show in some of the places that they visited. But I really do think that, even while the show has now been, since he tragically passed away, has not been, airing live or with new shows, I think that the Bourdain effect still is this ongoing thing. And it's been very powerful in terms of promoting a new kind of culinary travel. So within that, what is if culinary travel can be used towards creating a sustainable tourism model or something beyond that, let's define a little bit what is sustainable tourism, and also how is it evolving. First, let's take a look at what's unsustainable tourism. And again, for many of you, I'm sure that these are concepts you're very familiar with, but really prioritize numbers. It's just pretty straight ahead. Prioritizing short-term benefits, lack of diverse choices for visitors, local culture and traditions absent, and environmentally unsound. I think this is, kind of says it all. I think this photo gives a good illustration of the kind of thing that, many of us who are working in the field would like to avoid. So if we think about sustainability, sustainable tourism, one idea that we've been also very much interested in is moving not just towards sustainable tourism, but towards a regenerative type of tourism. And that's one that's much more involves the community, much more involves the local stakeholders, is much more contributes to local growth, local development, and really helps put together, as the name says, a kind of regenerative process in place, one that really helps build towards local improvement. So what does that entail? And we've been thinking a lot about what does it mean both for visitors, but also for community side. I mean, there's a kind of interplay there. It shouldn't be just people coming in and leaving without the community being both engaged and also getting some benefits from it. So for visitors, what should good experiences include? They should be memorable, of course, entertaining, collaborative, building connection, and empowering. And the photo here is one from our tour in Naples, Italy. And it's a good example of what we're talking about because his name is Pasquale, and Pasquale is the last maker of traditional market signs. You can see him painting, and if any of you've been to Naples, if you get to go, you'll see these signs really everywhere, all over town, in the markets. And we take people as part of our tour there into his workshop, get to meet him. And I think it really has all those elements. And it's incredibly memorable, entertaining. He's a very memorable and entertaining character. There's a kind of collaboration effort, seeing he gives his signs. The connection with him is made, and I think people do feel quite empowered by seeing a kind of master like this at work. On the community side, we want the experiences to contribute to the vibrancy of local communities and to help in generating quality jobs, increasing economic participation for local community members, and promoting higher levels of civic and community engagement. We feel like, again, an activity like this really does hit that. We're able to bring more people into his workshop. We've been able to sell his signs online. Since we've written about him as well on our website, he's sort of become something of a local celebrity in many ways. So we really feel like we're able to hit a lot, if not all, of these kind of criterion through the activities that we're doing. So, kind of summing it up, where do these experiences, what do they require? Of course, food. Here's a table from one of our trips in Georgia, a supra table, a traditional Georgian feast. So yeah, I know we're talking about high level concepts here and a lot of doing good, but really, we got to remember food is at the heart of this. So food and really good examples of it. Places, I think, bringing in memorable spots. This is a photo on a walk that we do in Lisbon. It's a restaurant we take people to that's near the water side, and they have an outdoor grill, and it's kind of in this sort of industrial dockside area. It's a very memorable location with memorable food. People, meeting these local characters, local artisans, local masters. On the left here is a stuffed mussel vendor in Istanbul that is part of one of the walks that we do there. On the right is a fishmonger in Lisbon, who gives people stories about the fish, and again, these are this kind of human connection in many ways is what people walk away with as the most memorable part of their experience. So it's sort of, the food is amazing, the locations are incredible, but the people and the connection with them is oftentimes ends up being the most memorable thing. And finally, stories. So all of these kind of come together with stories and what I like to refer to as human infrastructure, the idea that these local neighborhood spots that we take people to, the people who work there and are keeping them going, are part of this human infrastructure of a city as the kind of more classic and traditional infrastructure that we like to think of, the underground transportation and sewage systems and roads and power and all that kind of classic infrastructure. But then there's this human infrastructure, which neighborhood food places, and this is a photograph of a bodega in Barcelona. We do a walk in Barcelona that focuses just on bodegas, which are these neighborhood bars with food, but they're really so much more than that. They're really community gathering places. They act in Barcelona, they act as these kind of neighborhood clubhouses in many ways, where the regulars get together and even families come in for the vermouth hour on the weekend, and they really help sustain neighborhoods and then by extension sustain the city. So we're firm believers in this idea of human infrastructure and supporting these places as part of maintaining that human infrastructure of keeping cities livable. And we really want people to get a sense of those kinds of places. So how do we actually do this in practice? And we have started developing a kind of a program of the food tours that we do. So we started off already when we started off with our food tours. The idea was to really get off the typical tourist route and get into parts of the city that are harder to access, that are really not necessarily always the ones getting the part of the tourism dollar that comes in. But we've as culinary tourism has grown and other companies are starting to do that, we found that we really want to go off the grid, off the tourist grid, and develop walks in very local neighborhoods that are really have, kind of when you think about it, sort of in a very I don't know, very practical terms, there's nothing for tourists to see there. And this is that stepping back in time. These are neighborhoods that are really just where locals live, and where local culinary culture in many ways is better preserved, because in other neighborhoods, places might start catering more for tourism. Rents might have gotten so high that local places have had to move out and oftentimes move into these neighborhoods that are further off the grid. So in Barcelona, we developed a walk in the Sants neighborhood. The Sants neighborhood is, for those who know Barcelona, is where the central train station is located. But beyond that, there's really nothing. There's no Gaudi, there's no museums. What you have are just very interesting local neighborhood spots. Here's the kind of bodega that we take people to, where the locals hang out. And it's a way, this is another type of bodega restaurant. You can see the barrels of bulk wine, very much a locals place. And it's just an experience that is really hard to find increasingly in the cities, where people visit, because of this kind of globalization, where, many of the places that they go to in the more touristy neighborhoods feel like someplace they've been to in many other places, or very touristy. But the idea is to really take people deep and local. In Mexico City, we've developed a walk in the Azcapotzalco neighborhood. Those of you who are familiar with Mexico City might know it, or might even not. But it's a neighborhood that's sort of a little bit out of the center, not hard to get to. But it's really one where, again, there's really nothing in the classic sense of the word for tourists to see there. And for example, here is a little stop for pulque. Pulque is a kind of low alcohol fermented drink made from the sap of the agave plant. This is a guy who sets up kind of basically under an overpass just by train tracks. He has wonderful pulque. It's the kind of experience that would be very hard to find on your own. And even many locals may not know about this. And one of the kind of reactions we would like people to have about these walks that we're doing in these kinds of off-the-grid neighborhoods is sort of like, why are you going there? For example, in Barcelona, my wife has a colleague who lives there, and she told him that we were visiting there and we were going to go for a food tour in the Sants neighborhood. And he said, why? And I think that's exactly the reaction we want. We want people in Mexico to say, wait, why are you visiting that neighborhood? But the truth is, this is a photo here of an old flour mill in the neighborhood that's been turned into a kind of art center with really interesting street art and graffiti. It's just a kind of experience that is really interesting for locals as well as visitors, because a lot of locals just don't know about these areas. But especially we find for the people that we take on these walks, they really feel like they've entered a world that would be very hard for them to find on their own, and is so different than the kind of more touristy areas that are just overrun oftentimes. This is in Istanbul, we've developed a walk in a neighborhood called Kurtuluş. Kurtuluş is not very far from the central Taksim, Beyoğlu area, for those of you who know Istanbul, but it is a world away. It's a neighborhood. Traditionally, it was a Greek and Armenian neighborhood. Today, it also has lots of internal migrants who came from Eastern Turkey. This is a photograph of a breakfast place that we take them to, that's run by people from a place called Erzincan, which is kind of in far Eastern Turkey. They bake their own bread, or it's kind of flat, like kind of lavash flatbread, interesting dairy and honey. And it's just it's a kind of experience that is very hard to find in the more touristy parts of town. I want to do just another video just so you get a sense of the kind of experience that people have there. And then from there, I think we'll wrap it up and move into questions. But let me just play this video for you.
Now, this is Elif, the usta, the master. She said, welcome. And she's from Erzincan, the eastern part of Turkey. They have this traditional bread, candid, we call it. They make it with some wood fire here. And she started to work with her grandparents when she was 10. And now she's 30, so she's a master. Okay, we call them usta. She became semi-skilled kalfa, and then she prepares like 200 per day. So she wants me to do it too. So I'm going to try. Okay. Oh, that's close. Allah. Misafirlerimize. Buyurun efendim. Afiyet olsun. Nasıl? Buyurun efendim. Çok güzel.
So just before I wrap up, just to say in one of the slides back, just sort of talked about what these experiences entail, collaborative, empowering, connecting. I really feel like in that experience, there's so much of that. You know, people really connect with these local artisans. They get to try making something on their own just to get a sense of how it is. They get to taste something. They really get to connect with them and hear their stories. So these experiences, and it, you know, it would be very hard to do that in kind of the more classic tourist neighborhoods. So doing things in these kind of quieter, off the grid neighborhoods really allows us to create very, very deep and immersive experiences. So that's really the story. I'm going to stop the share now, and I think what I'd like to do is just open it up for questions, because I'd love to hear what the audience has to say.
Thank you, Yigal. We already have a question. How do locals in cities that are struggling with over-tourism like Barcelona react to going off-grid, and what are your target markets?
Yeah, so what we try to do is, you know, Barcelona is a good example because there's been such a reaction to the tourism there. You know, our model is small groups, and to really work in ways that are collaborative. So in that sense, checking in with local businesses, you know, making sure that what we do fits what they want. I think, you know, we also look for places that are interested in having some extra business, but again, doing it in a way that's respectful, that's mindful, conscious of what these local businesses can support and what they want, and really having an open dialogue with them about doing this and really building the relationships. So we found that this model has been very welcome, because these are really places that have not received any of the tourists, you know, any of the benefits, nor really of the downsides of tourism, because they're really just off that grid. So there isn't the hostility there yet. And we hope not that it doesn't get there by doing things in a way that's, again, small scale, respectful, collaborative. In terms of target markets, what you mean, like new markets, or wasn't clear to me?
Let's give them a second to add additional information to that. John,
also,
what markets do you draw your customers from?
well, I mean, currently for the day tours that we do, it's a lot of independent travelers. We work on a lot of word of mouth, a lot of repeat customers who kind of go from, let's say, took our tours in Barcelona and now join us in Lisbon. TripAdvisor and Viator provide some good customer base for us. But really the big one for us, actually for the day tours is really word of mouth and these repeat customers. We also do multi-day trips, which I didn't talk about as much. But these are very immersive culinary trips. They are anchored in the cities that we work in, but then we kind of they give us a chance to expand beyond the city. So to do some stuff, kind of rural, meet farmers, winemakers, other producers. They really let us go quite deep and do also some stuff that's sort of beyond the food, other kind of culture guardians like theater, puppet makers, depending on the location. But those we are able to work with some other partners who provide us with some customers for that, and also again through word of mouth and some past customers.
So you're reaching people that are already there in the destination? You're not doing a lot of advanced marketing to travelers?
No, we are
we
do. We are. I mean, I think when I say it's less, people are less on organized trips or tours like that, but people are independent travelers looking for on experiences.
Yeah, well, people choose, I think our research showed that 92% of travelers choose their next holiday destination by the reputation of the food and drink in the destination. So I think we choose the destination first, and then we figure out how we're going to eat wonderfully there.
Yeah, exactly.
So I got a question for you. To what extent do you work with the local tourism offices?
It's something we'd like to deepen, and it's very kind of place by place. In some places we've had better connections, in other places less so. In some places we found that the kind of work that we're trying to do, not so much the idea of culinary tourism, but the style that we like to do it in doesn't necessarily mesh with how the local tourism board sees things. Sometimes they want to present a place kind of, not, I don't know how to put it, like maybe, they want to kind of sanitize it a little bit and sort of say, hey, it's
only show the pretty parts.
Yeah, it's clean and safe, So for example, taking people to an underpass in Mexico City to drink pulque might not be the kind of thing that, most tourism boards, think, is the kind of image of the city they want to show. But we know there's an audience out there that's kind of ready for something really deep, and really true to that sense of place. So I'd say it's a mixed record, but would love to work closely. And we've had very good experience in Istanbul, for example, working with local tourism bodies there, and also with marketing agencies working abroad and bringing members of the press on our tours and really giving them a sense of what we do and seeing the city through what we do. And we've been able to do that in other places as well.
And in cities like Barcelona that are experiencing over tourism, are you getting a cold shoulder from the tourism board, or are they proactively working with you?
Barcelona, we've had less, I think, because it's so well visited, we've sort of felt less need to interact with them there. So it would be hard for me to kind of give a good example. I think in general, in places where we've reached out and to local tourism boards, the reaction has been very good. I mean, I think it's been positive. We just it has not always been like a perfect fit.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. And let's see. So we have a question from a travel advisor here, and she is asking, we love to include these experiences in our itineraries. How do we work with organizations like yours for commissions, or do we need to package these into an itinerary price so we can add our markup? This is often a challenge for travel advisors.
Yeah, we're flexible. I mean, we can. I think it really depends on the kind of packages that you're offering. But we work in a variety of we have a few different models that we've worked with, and it really just depends on kind of, case by case, what makes the most sense for both sides. But we work both in commissions and also can work with you in terms of including it as part of an itinerary. We're very open. We're very flexible.
So here's Yigal's website. And Yigal, would you like to put your contact information in the chat so
Sure.
people can, it's easier than trying to copy from the screen and
Yeah,
then,
just my email or.
Yeah, email is probably best. Although
think so.
Roberta, who's asked the question, she is based in the US, so maybe your phone number too, if you are comfortable with that. Whatever you'd like to put in.
I'll put my email and then that's probably the best.
Okay. There you go. Easy enough.
Yep.
Great. So John has agreed with you that you are quite correct. If your destination, if your work doesn't fit the destination's goals, then interest and support are negligible.
Yeah, that's been I mean, yeah.
It's lonely at the top.
We hope that,
Yigal.
but but we hope I mean, we're seeing slow changes for sure.
Yeah. I know it's when you try and pioneer something new, it can be quite lonely there.
We really see ourselves as kind of ambassadors for these locations that we work in. We really kind of see ourselves as promoting a really positive vision of the place. We really, in Istanbul, where we've worked the longest, and we have a guidebook that's now been 10 years or more in print. We really see ourselves as kind of ambassadors of a kind of local culture and really helping to promote the place. So we really do want to be part of that process. And the more ways we can do it, the better for everyone, we think.
Well, I think that certainly came through in your presentation today, that you are a partner, that you're culturally sensitive, your sustainability interests are definitely there and proven. There's a track record of that. So I think that as tour operators I think you're kind of a good role model for whoever's doing tours in a destination, whether you're a tourist guide, tour operator, travel agent, travel advisor, whatever. I think that the way you are doing business is a great way to do business. And
thank you. Really appreciate it.
Hopefully that you'll inspire others to do the same, so we can have responsible tourism and regenerative tourism.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it for the questions and so on. So I would just like to thank you very much, Yigal, for squeezing us into your holiday schedule. I know it's hard when you've got family commitments and other things going on.
Yeah, no worries. No, thank you, everyone. And you've people out there have my email, so feel free to get in touch, and I can always pass you along to the right person in our organization to talk to. And just happy to keep the conversation going offline and elsewhere. Wonderful. And if anyone wants to try out what we do, just let me know. Happy to
thank you, Yigal.
All right, thank you.
So thank you, everyone, for attending this year's FoodTreX Global Online Summit. And if you have the the premium registration package, you will get recordings by Friday of this week. We just need a little time to polish things up and remove any kind of bloopers. But those recordings will be available by Friday. And so that's a wrap for this year's summit. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Yigal.
Great. Thank you. All right, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.